should you be eating bread? I was thinking about this the other day, and it's like, well, Jesus ate bread. If it was good enough for JC, why can't I have a little piece of bread? Well, the bread that they were eating 2,000 years ago was a lot different than the breads that we eat today. What has happened to a lot of our foods, not just breads, a lot of processed foods, they put in sugar and they put in, or it might not necessarily be sugar, it might be some other form of sugar, high fructose corn syrup, they do all this beet sugar, they do all these different sorts of things to replace the sweetness in things or to make things taste sweeter. And they put in these processed seed oils, soybean oil, canola oil, all those things to give things texture. And those things promote inflammation in the body. And some people with like gluten sensitivity, they have a stronger reaction to those things. I think some people are more sensitive to things like high fructose corn syrup. Their liver might not be as robust, so they can't handle it. But I think in general, if you want to have the maximum health that you can, you want to stay away from processed foods, and bread is one of those things. And bread, it's not just bread, it's like any baked good. Any baked good is going to have the same characteristics as quote unquote bread. And so what's in bread, right? You have the flour, and flour is, wheat that's been ground down. And what happens is that allows it to get into the bloodstream a lot quicker. So it spikes your insulin. I've talked about insulin before and how we want to try to lower insulin if we want to make sure that we're starting to get into fat burning so that we can access, the fat in our body fat so that we can burn it. Well, what would be the positive of high insulin or a high insulin spike is if you were trying to build muscle and you have protein going around in your system and you're lifting weights and you're really, really, really trying to build, then maybe that might be true. Bodybuilders take insulin. They want to spike their insulin so that they can maximize the amount of muscle that they grow because insulin pushes things into the cells. Well, if you're already overweight and then you're adding something in your system like sugar, fructose, wheat, like things that are going to spike your blood sugar, you're not going to be able to access the fat to burn. So even if you are going to the gym and building muscle, it's going to, again, those excess amounts of calories, or just because you have insulin pumping through your system, it's going to shuttle things into those fat cells. So on the grand scheme of things, okay, well, what should be the advice? Well, you don't have to take any of my advice, but I would say physiologically, when I eat something that is packaged, our body doesn't know necessarily what to do with it. And so, again, depending on where you're at on the scale of being able to deal with it, like I said, your liver might not be as healthy. You might have a much more genetic predisposition to be more sensitive to things like these processed seed oils and things that they put in to make things the texture that we want. You might be more sensitive to those things, but either way, your body is not designed to take those foods and process them because it's used to natural foods. It knows what to do with unzipping the package of an almond or unzipping the package of a banana and eating that. But a packaged good, it throws a monkey wrench into it. Like I said, it'll spike insulin too much because there's not as much fiber in it. It has these processed seed oils in it that are high in omega-6s that will promote inflammation in the body, which can lead to things like leaky gut, where the gut or your intestines are supposed to let certain things through. There's like a cloth, like a cheesecloth. It lets certain things through and it blocks other things. Well, if it starts to get holes in that cloth, it's going to let more things in. And then you have this like low level inflammation, almost like a food allergy, right? That's what a lot of these things are, sensitivities. And your body's kind of on a heightened state of awareness, but it's throughout your whole body. So your body knows what to do with natural foods. It doesn't know what to do when things are ground, processed, okay? The oil themselves is processed. Now we're putting that together, added sugar, putting that together. That's what you're putting through all that. That's what's in bread and baked goods. So you have all those components. What's your body going to do? It's going to, again, be taken for a spin. It's going to be made to do more than it's normally used to. Like I said, it knows what to do with those natural foods. It can unzip those and process those into the body and then flush out whatever it doesn't need. And your intestines are pretty happy for the most part. If you already had damage, sometimes it doesn't matter. Doesn't, even if you eat healthy foods, because of the damage, you have to heal the damage. And that's for another video, where there's certain foods that you can eat. There's prebiotics and probiotics, and then there's just eliminating certain foods. A lot of times the elimination diet solves a lot of that issue. This is why the carnivore diet is like this miracle thing for some people, okay? Because they're eliminating a ton of foods. Same thing with keto. They're eliminating a ton of foods that they normally would eat. And it's not necessarily that the benefit comes from eating the meat or eating the high fat diet in case of carnivore and keto. It's just because they're not eating any of these pro-inflammatory foods or these foods that were damaging them. And then now they eliminate, the gut gets a chance to heal, and then they can maybe even go back to eating some of those foods if they don't have one of those allergies. A quick story on especially gluten sensitivity, wheat sensitivity. I was dating someone, and I started out as her trainer, and we were peers. We both worked together at a gym, and so I was just helping her out, training her. And so I would always talk to her about diet stuff before we started dating. And then we started dating, and so she kind of took my advice a little bit more. And so we started experimenting with certain things. And then I said, maybe you're sensitive to gluten. I gave her this book, and she read it, and she was like, well, I really have these cravings. That's another sign. If you really crave a food, or if you really like it and you eat more and more and more of it, you might be sensitive, not all the time, but you might be sensitive to it. Because what happens is when you eat something and you really crave more of it, is because your body is not processing the vitamins and the minerals that's in it. And sometimes those foods don't have any vitamins and minerals in it anyways, but you crave more of it because you're only able to pull in a little bit of those vitamins and minerals. So it's like, I need more of that to satisfy me. But she had a problem with bread and baked goods and things like that. And so we got rid of the gluten, all right? And she was always complaining to me about knee pain, back pain, and foot pain. Those were some of the issues that we were working with because she taught all these group exercise classes. She was a personal trainer herself. So she was always physically active, and she ate pretty healthy for the most part. But one of the things was, she would snack, and that's what we do. We, eat these baked goods and eat whatever. And as trainers, we kind of think that we can get away with it. Well, she got rid of the gluten out of her diet for a little while. And she wasn't really paying it. She just got so used to the knee pain, back pain, and foot pain that it wasn't like it was a big change for her when those things went away. But they started to go away. She didn't really notice it that much, right? But she's like, I feel better, right? I really feel better overall. Then what happened one day is she accidentally, I forget either she accidentally ate gluten or she ate something just to try it again. And the knee pain, the back pain, and the foot pain, along with a lot of abdominal pain, all right, she had cramping, all came back when she ate that food. So she had a more heightened sensitivity to things, but she numbed that over time by eating too much of it. And I think we're going to see more of that. I think there's some theories that go along with the more you eat something, if you eat a ton of it, it ends up kind of your body's like, all right, time out. All right, we've had enough of this. It's kind of like you overdo it in your body, and your body just can't handle it. Kind of like what we talked about before with the blood sugar and insulin. You keep going more and more and more with your body. You pump the blood sugar up, and your insulin becomes less receptive. Like the cells, they're like insulin resistant. They don't take insulin anymore. And then you start filling up your fat cells. And that's type 2 diabetes. Well, this is in the case of like an autoimmune response, a more allergy and inflammatory response with certain foods. For some people, it might be gluten, wheat products. And so, you can kind of dull your senses to, you can kind of feel normal, even though you feel like crap, you feel normal, and then you get rid of those things and a lot of that stuff goes away. You feel great, but if you eat it again, it comes back. Some people, they can clear their system out, they eat it again, and it doesn't have as big of a problem. But I would say my recommendation is try not to eat any processed foods, whether it's coming from wheat, gluten, flour, processed seed oils, processed sugar, any of those things. Again, I just think it leads to a bad way. The spiking of the insulin, the omega-6s and the pro-inflammatory response, all those things are going to be involved in those baked goods and processed foods. Why give your body more to deal with? It's already dealing with all the stress that we have from all the lights, from all the information that we get, social media and the news and around the world, jobs, the economy, driving, just being in a car can be very, very stressful. You've got, your chance of dying is, think about how many people die in car accidents. We have all this stress now in this modern world. Why make it worse? Well, it's convenient and it tastes good. okay, I talked about food addiction yesterday. So it's kind of my theme this week talking about nutrition. And okay, I mean, if the little bit of mouth pleasure is better than having a full life and feeling good, the next thing, right? Andrew Huberman I think just recently, I don't know if it was a recap of something, but I just saw something, him talking about how food affects your mood. I think anxiety and depression, we're going to start finding more and more of this information coming out. It's not going to be on the mainstream because the big food companies are never going to want this information to come out to say that our food causes these things. But I know that to be true myself. Anecdotally, I've seen that. So don't give your body more than it already has to deal with, especially if you're sensitive. Sometimes it's just the luck of the draw. Some people can have great skin and eat shit and drink Coca-Cola and do all these different things. I can't, all right? I'm sensitive to wheat and to dairy. If I eat those things, I break out, I feel like shit, joint pain, all the bloating, stomach problems. I've had that my whole life until I started getting rid of those things. I was like, oh, this is how you're supposed to feel. I always am trying to experiment and find what's optimal because I'm so sensitive to things. Some people are sensitive to everything. This is why going on a carnivore diet or an elimination diet works for them. It's just a genetic thing. It just happens. Some people aren't that sensitive. But either way, on either end of the spectrum, getting rid of processed foods can only do good things for you because your body was not designed for those extra processes. Like I was saying, it knows what to do with an apple. It knows what to do with a carrot. It doesn't necessarily know how to deal with those processed foods because it's processed, it's extra stuff, it's stripped of its vitamins and minerals or its fiber that allows the body to take it in and do what it needs to do with it. So that's my rationale of why I would err on the side of caution in regard to eating wheat products or bread. Okay, that's all we got for today. Maybe we'll talk about one of these other topics that I mentioned in this video tomorrow, but we'll see what inspires me. So until then, I'll see you then.